It is, it's the ultimate paradox of human nature.
Hmm.
If you look out at the universe or even just look at like basic cellular biology, change is literally the only true constant in existence.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right. But as human beings, our neurology is completely hardwired to crave stability.
Yeah.
We want our routines, We want to know exactly what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, we really do.
And when those two realities collide, our deep biological need for safety and life's absolute demand for change, we end up in this highly uncomfortable, deeply chaotic space.
It is the absolute definition of psychological friction. I mean, we
Yep.
spend a massive portion of our lives caught in the crosshairs between who we were yesterday and who we are, actively becoming today.
Right.
And because our brains process uncertainty as a literal threat, that in-between space just feels incredibly dangerous.
And that danger, that friction, that's exactly what we're exploring in today's deep dive. We're looking at the profound psychological and, practical architecture of life transition.
Yeah, the mechanics of it.
Exactly. What does it actually take to navigate that messy middle ground between your old identity and your new one? And the source material we're pulling from today provides a really unique toolkit for understanding this.
It really does. It's fascinating.
We're looking at a framework built around 20 essential English phrasal verbs. Now, just to be clear, for you listening, we are not doing a vocabulary lesson.
No, definitely not.
We are using these specific phrases because they perfectly map the journey of change. They capture the exact emotional weight and the practical milestones of transforming your life.
Yeah, and what really stands out in these sources is how our everyday language sort of betrays our hidden psychology.
Oh, totally.
These verbs don't just describe random actions, they map out states of being, internal struggles, and ultimate resolutions. They give us a tangible structure for all those invisible and often terrifying processes happening inside our minds when everything around us is shifting.
Let's anchor this with a visual for you, the listener. Think about a major life transition like downloading a massive software update for your smartphone or your computer.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. Because in theory, you're thrilled about it. You read the release notes, you're expecting all these new features, a much better processing speed, maybe a sleeker interface, so you hit install.
And then the panic sets in.
Exactly. The installation process actually starts, and your screen goes completely black. All your usual reliable apps just stop working. You can't make a call, you can't navigate anywhere, and for a terrifying 20 minutes, you are just staring at a tiny progress bar that seems permanently stuck at 14%.
It's the worst feeling.
You start sweating, wondering if your entire system is completely bricked. That black screen, that stuck progress bar, that is the messy middle.
I love the software update analogy because, you cannot run a new operating system while the old one is still actively executing commands.
Right, they can't run at the same time.
Exactly. You have to shut down the familiar to make room for the novel. And that brings us to the very first emotional milestone of any major transition from the text, which is the departure.
The departure is such a strange phase, isn't it? Because it's where we're usually full of hope, adrenaline, and honestly, a healthy dose of naive optimism.
Oh, the initial rush is intoxicating. The sources really highlight this concept of embarking on a new path.
To embark on, yeah.
Right. When you decide to embark on a fresh journey, whether that's launching a startup, moving to a new city, or completely shifting your career trajectory, there is this immense wave of excitement.
Because it feels new and shiny.
Exactly. Your brain is flooding your system with dopamine simply because you made a decision. But that chemical high, it's temporary. The reality of trying to transition into a completely different version of yourself hits you incredibly hard shortly after.
Yeah, transitioning into it is the hard part.
Because it's not an event, It's a grueling process.
It's definitely not a light switch. You don't just wake up one Tuesday and suddenly you're the seasoned CEO or the ultramarathon runner or fluently speaking a new language.
Right.
And here's where the sources get really interesting regarding the actual cost of moving forward. We have this culturally ingrained idea that growth is purely additive.
Yes, we always think about adding.
We think, I'm going to add a new skill to my resume, or I'm going to add a new title to my life.
Yeah.
But to actually move forward, the very first thing you have to do is subtract. You have to phase out your outdated routines.
And phasing out old habits requires an enormous, often exhausting amount of self-awareness. I mean, you have to actively notice the comforting but totally unproductive behavioral loops you're caught in.
And then you have to break them.
Exactly. You have to slowly, deliberately dismantle them.
Yeah.
And the brain hates this Those old routines are paved narrow pathways that require zero energy to run. Building new ones is calorically expensive.
So expensive.
But then comes the even more painful part of the departure. It's not just phasing out your morning habits. You also have to leave behind certain environments, long-held mindsets, or even relationships that fundamentally just no longer fit your ultimate trajectory.
Leaving behind is rough. And I want to dig into why this specific stage ruins so many people's goals. Like, why do we struggle so violently right at the starting line?
That's the million-dollar question.
I feel like it's because we desperately try to add the new life without ever leaving behind the old one. Think about it like trying to wear a heavy insulated winter coat over a brand new, perfectly tailored summer outfit.
Oh, man. That sounds miserable.
Right. You want the new summer look, but you're terrified of being cold. You don't trust the new weather yet, so you just keep the old winter coat on, just in case.
Just as a backup.
Yeah. And what happens? You just end up sweating profusely, completely uncomfortable, and totally unable to move your arms. You look ridiculous, you feel worse, and you can't actually enjoy the new environment.
The winter coat analogy perfectly illustrates a core psychological hurdle here, which is our intense aversion to vulnerability.
We hate being vulnerable.
We really do. When you leave the past behind, you are intentionally creating a terrifying void of stability. Taking off that heavy coat means you feel the cold air hitting your skin. You feel entirely exposed.
And human nature abhors a void.
Exactly. We cannot stand the feeling of exposure. So the moment we feel that vulnerability, our brain attempts to control the anxiety by wildly over-anticipating the future.
Which pulls us right into the reality check phase of the text. The illusion of control. I mean, we love a beautifully color-coded spreadsheet when we're secretly terrified, don't we?
Oh, it is our ultimate coping mechanism. When people face the void of a transition, they immediately sit down to map out their futures.
Map out, right.
We try to anticipate every single variable, every potential roadblock. We conjure up these incredibly idealized cinematic scenarios in our heads where our execution is flawless.
We're just the hero of the movie.
Exactly. Everything goes smoothly, and our success is just this straight upward trajectory. We conjure up a fantasy to basically self-soothe the anxiety of the unknown.
But then you actually step onto the field. You have to put down the spreadsheet, close your laptop, and look at the physical landscape in front of you. You have to size up the situation.
Yeah, the sizing up is where reality hits.
It really is. You're forced to carefully examine the actual, tangible challenges standing between you and your goal. And let me tell you, when you size up the gritty reality versus the smooth fantasy you conjured up in your head, massive, paralyzing intimidation sets in.
And that collision between the fantasy and the reality is the exact moment imposter syndrome strikes.
Oh, it hits like a ton of bricks. You start looking at the sheer vertical drop of the mountain, and then you look down at your cheap hiking shoes, and you wonder if your skills and your physical stamina will actually measure up to the demands of this new chapter.
Will I measure up? Yeah.
You start thinking, I am entirely unequipped for this. I tricked myself. And worse, I tricked everyone around me into thinking I could pull this off.
This raises a critical point, and the sources offer a brilliant reframing of this specific psychological friction. Culturally, we tend to interpret imposter syndrome and overwhelming doubt as a giant red stop sign.
We think it means stop.
Right. We think it's the universe or our own intuition telling us that we made a mistake and we need to turn back. But this friction isn't a sign of failure at all. It is a necessary built-in psychological mechanism designed to weed out superficial desires.
Wait, let me challenge that idea for the listener, though. Because if it's just a built-in mechanism to weed things out, why is it designed to feel so incredibly agonizing? Like, think about it like a physiological immune response. When you get a severe fever, it feels terrible. You're sweating through your sheets, you're shivering, your body aches, and you literally feel like you're dying.
Yeah, fevers are awful.
But medically, the fever isn't the virus. The fever is actually your body turning up the internal thermostat to burn off the virus. So is this immense self-doubt just our brain turning up the psychological heat, burning off weak, half-hearted commitments, so only the truly authentic goals survive?
Okay, the fever analogy gets us halfway there, but let's take it a step deeper.
Yeah.
A physical fever is your body fighting off an external invader, right? What you're describing with imposter syndrome is an internal recalibration.
How so?
It's an evolutionary stress test for your own ambitions. If you merely wanted something because it sounded impressive at a dinner party, the moment you have to size up the grueling reality and see if you measure up, you will quit.
And you probably should quit if that's the case.
Exactly, and you should quit. The intense pressure of the reality check acts as a catalyst to strip away all that external fluff. It strips away the desire for easy status, the need for immediate validation, all the romanticism of the end goal.
Yeah.
And if you survive that psychological fever, what's left over? You are left with absolute core values and the raw discipline required to actually do the work.
So the fever breaks. The romantic, superficial motivations are entirely stripped away, and you're left staring at the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of the daily effort required.
The honeymoon phase is officially dead.
Dead and gone. This introduces an entirely new set of pitfalls, moving us into what the sources call the messy middle, the grind.
The grind is where the actual architecture of your transformation is built, and it begins with having to grapple with the mundane.
Grapple with, yeah.
In this phase, you are no longer fighting the grand dragons of self-doubt. You are grappling with the sheer, unglamorous monotony of being a beginner. And there is a massive counterintuitive danger here regarding the big picture.
Which sounds completely backwards.
Yeah.
Aren't we always told to keep our eyes on the prize? Visualize the finish line.
In the early stages, visualizing the finish line is helpful. In the messy middle, it can be fatal.
Really? Fatal?
Yes, because if you only stare at the final goal from the very bottom of the mountain, you risk getting completely bogged down by the sheer distance left to travel.
Getting bogged down.
Right. You become paralyzed by the massive gap between your current incompetence and your future mastery. Getting bogged down means you are so overwhelmed by the overarching difficulty that your daily momentum just grinds to an absolute halt.
So to avoid getting bogged down, the text suggests a complete shift in focal length. You have to stop looking at the summit and look exclusively at the 3 feet of rock right in front of your face.
Exactly.
Micro-adjustments.
You focus on micro-adjustments. You work systematically to iron out daily operational flaws. You aren't trying to overhaul your entire life in a 24-hour period, You're just trying to iron out your disorganized morning routine.
Right.
You're ironing out the clunky way you handle a single client email or just the inefficiency in your workout form.
It is about building structural integrity, brick by tedious brick. You have to take the time to shore up your psychological and physical defenses every single day.
Yes, you shore up your boundaries so you don't burn out. You shore up your sleep schedule. You shore up your basic nutritional habits. It is highly repetitive, deeply unglamorous work.
It is the least glamorous thing in the world, which leads to a fascinating behavioral trap highlighted in our source material.
Oh, the hiding.
Yeah. Because the work is so unglamorous, and because we feel so wobbly and unsure of our footing in this new identity, there's a massive temptation to just blend in.
Just disappear into the background.
Exactly. We want to look and act like everyone else around us who already knows what they're doing, so we aren't noticed. We convince ourselves that the easiest way to survive a major transition is to put our heads down, fly completely under the radar, and essentially fake it until we eventually feel comfortable.
But blending in is a basic human survival instinct. In the wild, standing out means getting eaten. But in the context of personal growth, blending in is actually self-sabotage. True transformation demands the exact opposite of hiding. If you are transitioning, you must accept the profound ego-bruising discomfort of being a beginner, which means you have to be willing to stand out.
You have to stand out.
You have to be prominent, noticeable, and unfortunately, sometimes visibly incompetent while you learn the ropes.
It is pure agony to be a beginner as an adult. Think about being 30 or 40 or 50 years old and stepping into a beginner's dance class for the very first time.
Oh, that's a terrifying thought.
Right. Blending in is hiding in the very back row of the studio. You're barely moving your arms. You're stepping half a beat behind everyone else, just trying desperately not to look foolish in the mirrors.
Yeah, playing it safe.
But because you're holding back, because you're protecting your ego, you aren't actually feeling the rhythm. You aren't learning the routine. Standing out means having the courage to march to the front row, throwing your whole body into the choreography, and being completely willing to fall flat on your face in front of a room full of strangers.
It's humiliating.
It is humiliating for the ego, but falling over in the front row is literally the only way your central nervous system actually learns the routine.
The dance class is a perfect physical representation of the mental barrier. Because when you're hiding in the back row, you are prioritizing the protection of your current identity at the direct expense of your future one.
Wow.
By standing in the front and risking the visible fall, you are actively sacrificing the old ego to build the new one. And neuroplasticity requires those visible mistakes. Your brain learns by predicting an outcome, failing, and recalibrating.
Right.
And if you can survive that daily grind, if you can consistently show up your defenses, iron out the kinks, and violently resist the urge to hide in the back row, a fundamental shift eventually occurs in how you process your new reality. We move into the breakthrough.
The breakthrough. The promised land. This is what we have been sweating in the front row for. But the text makes a crucial distinction here. This shift does not happen by accident, and it doesn't happen just because enough time has passed.
No, absolutely not.
It requires sheer, sustained will. You have to make the conscious decision to push through the resistance. You have to push through the days where literally nothing works, your motivation is at zero, and you feel like an absolute fraud.
The resistance is thickest right before the breakthrough. But when you do continue to push through, you reach what we often call the aha moment.
I love that moment.
It's the incredible neurological reward where all those separate pieces of clunky knowledge, those awkward new habits, and those tedious micro-adjustments suddenly begin to click into place.
Click into place.
The disparate elements suddenly synthesize, they make sense, and they begin to work together with extreme fluidity.
It feels like actual magic when it happens.
Oh.
Suddenly, you aren't mentally translating the new language in your head before you speak. You're just speaking it naturally.
Exactly.
You aren't consciously thinking about the clutch, the brake, and the gas pedal. You're just driving the car down the highway. What used to feel so incredibly forced, mechanical, and exhausting suddenly becomes second nature.
It feels like magic to the person experiencing it. But as we've mapped out, it is the direct result of rigorous, structured effort. The feeling of things clicking into place is just the visible, conscious result of months of invisible, unconscious ironing out.
It makes so much sense.
The neural pathways are finally paved, which brings us to the final and perhaps most rewarding phase of this transitional map, which is the retroactive view.
Right, the retroactive view. Years later, when you finally look back, when you reflect on the past at this wildly intense period of your life, the way you view the entire experience completely changes.
It shifts completely.
Because when you are currently sitting in the messy middle, it feels like a chaotic, random sequence of highly stressful events. It feels like the universe is just punishing you.
Oh, it feels awful in the moment. But from the vantage point of the retroactive view, you realize it wasn't chaotic at all. It was a highly structured evolution.
Structured evolution.
Every single time you had to size up a terrifying challenge. Every time you felt completely bogged down by the scale of the work. Every time you had to grit your teeth and push through the desire to quit. It was building toward a much grander design.
Wow.
It was a compounding process that will ultimately culminate in an elevated, highly refined version of your life.
Culminate in. I love that. And this brings me to what I think is the core revelation of this entire deep dive. I want to zero in on one specific, really profound quote from our source material today.
Let's hear it.
It says, "The transition itself is the destination where character is forged."
Oh, that's powerful.
Let's really unpack the weight of that.
Yeah.
Does this mean we have been looking at the concept of the messy middle entirely wrong this whole time? Because normally, in our culture, we think of a life transition like walking through a dark, scary subterranean tunnel.
Yeah, just trying to get to the end.
Exactly. We view the tunnel as merely an obstacle. The only point of the tunnel is to survive the darkness, get to the other side as fast as possible, and reach the light.
That is absolutely the standard view. The transition is viewed purely as a toll you have to pay to get to the desired destination. We want the result without the process.
But what if the tunnel isn't just a transit path? What if the tunnel is actually a forge?
A forge, like a blacksmith's forge.
Exactly. Think about a blacksmith's forge. The intense heat, the massive pressure, the claustrophobia inside that environment, the sizing up of the raw materials, the measuring up of the iron, the grappling with the heavy hammer. What if those things aren't obstacles delaying your progress?
Right.
What if the heat and the hammer are the exact mechanisms shaping you into the kind of person who is actually capable of surviving once you finally step out into the light?
If we adopt that perspective, it changes everything. It means the psychological friction you feel isn't a bug in the system. It is the primary feature.
The primary feature.
Yeah. Let's say you could somehow bypass the tunnel entirely. If you could just press a button and teleport straight to the end of your transition, you would arrive at your new destination with the exact same character, the exact same coping mechanisms, and the exact same vulnerabilities you started with.
That's a scary thought.
You fundamentally wouldn't be able to hold on to the success you found there because you wouldn't have the structural integrity to support it. The agonizing imposter syndrome, the tedious need to shore up your skills, the humiliating moments where you had to push through failure in the front row of the class, those are the exact evolutionary mechanisms that ensure you actually belong at the finish line when you finally cross it.
Wow. If you teleported to the end, you would literally still be wearing that heavy, insulated winter coat while standing on a hot summer beach.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be ready for the new climate. You'd just be a highly uncomfortable person in a brand new location,
Yeah,
wondering why you still feel miserable.
precisely. Navigating change isn't just about surviving the chaos until things miraculously feel normal again. It is a highly structured, necessary evolution of the self.
Yeah.
And the 20 phrasal verbs we explored in the sources today, they aren't just English vocabulary. They form a psychological roadmap. They give language to the journey, taking you all the way from the initial, naive courage of embarking on a new path through the gritty, unglamorous reality of ironing out your daily flaws, all the way to the ultimate reward of allowing your sustained efforts to culminate in a refined, deeply resilient life.
So for everyone listening to this right now, wherever you are in your day, we really want you to apply this vocabulary to whatever messy middle you're currently grappling with. Are you currently bogging yourself down by staring way too hard at the summit of the mountain instead of the 3 feet in front of you?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Do you need to stop hiding in the back row of your own life and finally be willing to stand out, even if you look a little foolish while you learn the choreography? Name the specific phase you're in. Use the words. Giving language to the friction gives you power over the process.
And above all, remember that the anxiety you are feeling in the void isn't a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that the system is working exactly as intended. You are successfully stripping away the superficial fluff to get to your absolute core.
All right, we're going to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today. We've talked extensively about how you cannot install the new mental software without the old applications fully shutting down.
Right.
We've talked about how the dark tunnel is actually a forge designed to hammer you into shape. So if the messy, highly uncomfortable transition is actually the destination where your character is forged, what comfortable, deeply safe, but entirely outdated part of your current identity might you need to start phasing out today to make room for the person you are becoming tomorrow? Take off the winter coat. We will see you next time.